to end load shedding specifically. And then the second one is the energy mix the country will then pursue to secure our long-term energy supply until 2050 to maintain adequate, reliable, safe, and environmentally sound energy services for all customers. However, what does this mean for the future of work and youth development, in particular in our country? The Climate Ambition to Accountability Project, CARP, which is a tripartite project between the South African Climate Action Network, WWF, and the Institute for Economic Justice, will be hosting this webinar on the IRP 23 for the youth particularly to discuss the IRP and what its meaning is, particularly to the future of work. The main aim for our session today is, again, to discuss the IRP and the future of work. We're hoping that by the end of this, you would have a broad understanding of at least the relationship between some of these policy documents, one of which is the Integrated Energy Plan, and then its relationship with the Integrated Resource Plan. We'll have a look at the IRP 2023, and again, respond to the question of what it means for the youth of South Africa, future of work for the youth of South Africa. And then lastly, a short discussion on then what emerging opportunities, particularly within the future of work, that we could explore. Folks, without much ado, I will then allow for the speakers to come in. I won't be doing an intro. So if I may ask my colleagues to please just do a very quick intro as to just name and title and the organization, and then you may go on to your presentation thereafter. Just in terms of procedure for today, we will go through the first presentation. We'll have a quick Q&A, and then move into the next session, quick Q&A, then the last session, and then a quick Q&A. And then we'll have a bit more of a broad conversation, because we would like for today's session to be more of an interactive one as opposed to lecture style. And so let me then call on Steteni to speak on the first issue. And then if we can just remind you, please, to introduce yourself, and then thank you. Over to you.
But yes, guys, my name is Bonani Steteni. I'm working for the WWF as a climate and energy specialist. And basically what we're going to be sharing right now, the main focus is more of the IRP and the opportunities that are coming from the IRP, which the IRP right now, it's a living document, or it's a document that we're consistently talking about, because we're looking forward to the submissions that are possibly on the 23rd of March this week. So with that said, my job is very simple. Basically, it's just to introduce the IEP, which is the Integrated Energy Plan, and try to just flesh out the relationship between the two. What is the relationship between the IEP and the IRP? Now, like I said, the question is, what is an IEP? Now, the IEP, according to the white paper on energy policy of 1998, in particular section 8.1, says the IEP basically it's a roadmap of future landscape for South Africa. What does that mean? That basically means that the IEP, it's a document that's supposed to be regarded as a policy, rather, not regarded as a policy, but it is a policy. It is a policy that is supposed to provide a roadmap and guide any energy a project that is happening within the energy landscape in South Africa. That is to say, in other words, to guide any future energy infrastructure investment and also policy development. In other words, there should be no project development, at least at mega scale level, that should be developed within the country without being given by the limits of the IEP. So the IEP, it's basically an umbrella that takes everything that has to do with energy and making sure that it aligns it with other policies. So it aligns it with other policies. With that said, the IEP, of course, it has objectives, and the objectives are well known. There are 8 of them, which they include the ensurety of the security of supply, minimizing of cost of energy, promoting of job and creation of localization around the country, minimizing water consumption, and also promoting the demand side, which also include retrofitting and also energy efficiency. But more than anything, it looks at minimizing the environmental impact that possibly can be caused or is caused by fossil fuels. But in doing that, it does that by allowing certain documents or policy documents to diversify the supply of sources within South Africa, whilst we're still promoting the energy access. So if the IEP, which is now is a question now, if the IEP is such a beautiful document like this, that basically it's striving for us to have the security of supply in South Africa, and in the process to promote job creation and localization, then why is this IEP not active up to this point? Or rather, a question can be phrased like this: is the IEP an active document right now in South Africa? And the truth is, yes. The document itself, it does exist, but unfortunately it's not in operation. And the reason why is because when South Africa was transiting from 1994, which is prior apartheid, when South Africa was transiting from apartheid to democracy, unfortunately, when the country was going through that transition, the country was not capacitated enough to be able to develop the IEP as a governing vision within the country, in particular within the energy sector. So unfortunately, for the past 20 to 25 years, the country has been operating without this document, or rather this governing vision, simply because of previously we didn't have the capacity within the country. But however, since then, the country has developed so much capacity in terms of individuals, or rather institutions, that can actually do the technical function, or rather perform the technical functions to model this IEP, this document. Not only that, the country didn't have that capacity, but also the institutional alignment within the country, it was not sound enough to facilitate data and information flows across different institutions, either government institution or private institution, or just also intergovernmental organizations that have interest within the energy sector in South Africa. So that was the major hurdle, basically, that allowed for the government to overlook the IEP for the past 20 to 25 years, to overlook the IEP, but also looking forward into developing other roadmaps, which also include the liquid fuels, the gas roadmaps, including the IRP itself. But however, that overlooking of the IEP, never by any chance it silenced it or put it on or rather put it aside not to be operational, but it's just that it was postponed because the country, like I said, didn't have the capacity nor the sound institutional arrangement to make sure that there's a facilitation and the flow of information. Hence, it was put aside.
Sorry, Bonani, your presentation is on.
Okay,
can you just tell me which slide I need to go to?
Okay, slide 1. Rather, slide 2, slide 2. Yes, slide 2. So yes, as I was saying that, so the IEP was put on hold because the country, as we were transiting from the apartheid regime, we didn't have the internal capacity nor the sound institutional arrangement to facilitate the data and the information, rather the flow of information across different government institutions, private sector, and also including the civil societies, and also, of course, the intergovernmental organization. And because of that, the IEP was put aside. But also, one of the most important reasons that I found to be very credible to government to put aside the IEP, it's because of when we were transiting from the apartheid era to democracy, 11% within the country only had access to electricity. So that means the most pressing thing at the time was to make sure that everyone within the country has access to electricity. And how the government did that, of course, they did that by starting, or rather establishing, the electrification program, which was sustained from 1994 all the way up to 1999, and it even went beyond 2000. As far as I'm concerned, its remnants, they remain with it until the regime of Jacob Zuma. And the country indeed has to be given credit on that. The energy access within the country, it really improved from 11% all the way up to 94% during Thabo Mbeki, and after Thabo Mbeki all the way up to Zuma, it remained at 94%. But nonetheless, there was great progress within the country. So the IEP was put aside. Can you go, to slide 3? So the IEP was put aside because of that, and then the IRP, because it's such a flexible document in terms of scheduling the supply versus demand. It was the only document that the government really invested so much, because it's much more quicker, and not only it's much more quicker, it's not extensive as compared to the IEP. Now, this slide, basically, I'm just going to flesh out as of what is specifically the relationship between the IRP and the IEP. The IEP, like I said, it's a governing vision within the country that basically sets the roadmap on how the different energy markets are supposed to be set and be operational. As they are set and being operational, the IEP makes sure that all these roadmaps from different markets, there shouldn't be any misaligned around them. So it just aligns them and making sure that they are coherent. And also the IRP is part of those documents. In short, the IEP, which is Integrated Energy Plan, basically it looks at demand, supply, and climate, or rather in climate change. But as it looks at all of this, it tries by all means to look at this supply and demand and climate change by trying to make sure that the policies that are coming from the different energy markets, they are well aligned and there are no inconsistencies. So it becomes a very descriptive policy document that covers the entire energy sector, whereas the IRP, basically, it looks only on the electricity sector. If you can look at this diagram, you can see that if you follow the supply, which is the green, if you look at the supply, there's diversity of supply, which comes from renewables, gas, coal, liquid, all the way up to electricity. When you look at the electricity, then the electricity itself is divided into 3 subgroups, which are transmission development plan and also distribution infrastructure, and also the IRP. Now, the IRP, it is that prescriptive policy that focuses explicitly on electricity, not necessarily the entirety of the whole energy sector within the country. And that's very important for one to understand. As we're going through this excitement of responding to the IRP that was published on the 4th of January by the minister, it's very important on our comments that we do understand the fundamental difference between the IEP and the IRP. And if we understand that difference between the two documents, or other policy documents, then it's going to be easy for us to actually see the opportunities that are coming up with the IEP, but at the same time, they are coming up from the IRP. The words of closure are, the IEP, it's a very descriptive policy that covers the entire sector. When I say the entire sector, it means it also has cross-cutting issues that are inclined to social, that are inclined to social complexities, and also climate change policies, including the water usage. More than anything, it's very sensitive in making sure that as the energy sector is moving from intense carbon emitting economy towards the less carbon emitting economy, in the process of doing that, there should be a security of jobs. And that's what the IEP, but unfortunately, the IRP just looks only at the least cost technology and making sure that the country is positioned well, which means the IRP alone, it can't exist without the IEP. It has to be informed by the IRP, or rather by the IEP, in terms of the way that it's positioned. And right now, that's one of the contentious points within our response to the IRP, which we're supposed to be submitting on Saturday, that we cannot have the IRP without the IEP. Because if you start having the IRP without the IEP, then the whole scope of the energy sector, not rather the energy sector, but the electricity sector, it becomes limited. And thereafter, we don't know the possibilities of job creation. Hence, the IEP is very important to be put into operation so it can adequately inform the IRP. And yeah, that's basically the difference between the two policy documents. If there's any question, here am I. My colleague is going to come later on to delve into the IRP deeper than I just did. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monani. That was very insightful. And thank you for the succinctness as well. Right. Then we will proceed on to the next presentation, please. Gabriela, over to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you to all the participants for joining us today. It's so nice to see such a full room of interested participants. So as an introduction, my name is Gabby Knott. I'm an attorney at the Center for Environmental Rights. And basically the work that I've been doing recently, the Center for Environmental Rights has developed a toolkit that would aid as many organizations and individuals as possible to submit their thoughts on the integrated resource plan that was released in January and due for comments on Saturday. So that's really the lens that I'm providing this presentation with. I'm just going to run through some of the hot topics that have been introduced through this IRP, some of the issues, some of the highlights, if there are any, and then opening up questions that anybody might have on the IRP if anyone is interested in either making submissions or just wants to have more context. Okay. So firstly, just a quick overview of the IRP. And this is sort of what Bonani said, but it's essentially a government plan for how much electricity we need, where that electricity will come from in terms of what energy sources and where that electricity is needed and how it's going to get there. It's given its power through the Electricity Regulation Act. And the Regulation Act doesn't really prescribe the form or the look or the feel of the document. So it's really quite loosely can take any form. And it's the effect of the IRP is that it isn't a legislation, it's a policy document. So the decision to enact and to make an IRP finalized, it's not an administrative action, it's an executive action. It's coming from government departments. But nevertheless, the document has to subscribe to the principle of legality. So as a reminder, I'm an attorney, so I'm not an economist, I'm not an engineer. The specific lens that I'm looking at this document is it satisfying the requirement of legality? And as Bonani has said, the IRP is divided into two horizons. The first horizon is a more immediate future from now until 2030. And that horizon provides 5 scenarios that are quite detailed and quite well fleshed out in the IRP. It provides the different energy sources and the different procurers or providers of the different elements of electricity. And then horizon 2 is from 2030 to 2050. And it is less prescriptive. It's really quite vague in terms of what that would look like. But essentially what the IRP is trying to solve or address is the energy trilemma. The energy trilemma is we need energy sources that provide energy security, so constant available electricity for all, while at the same time being affordable, so enabling access to everyone in the country. And at the same time, those electricity sources need to be sustainable and not impact the environment in a negative way. So through my presentation, everyone can just hold that in their minds. Is the IRP essentially addressing this problem? As a quick high level, in comparison to the IRP in 2019, there is no new coal in Horizon 1, which is a stark difference from 2019. 2019 did provide for new coal projects, new coal-fired power stations to be built in this horizon. But the current IRP does delay the decommissioning of coal-fired power stations. It also introduces more gas. So in the previous IRP, there was 3,000 megawatts of gas proposed, none of which have come online. And the new IRP provides for 7,000 megawatts of gas. And I will get more deeper into that later. But all the slide is saying is we must keep in our minds, is the energy trilemma being achieved? Sorry. Okay, now into the specific energy sources that have been proposed. So the IRP currently, it essentially slashes the amount of renewable energy that's going to be publicly procured. It leaves renewables largely to be developed by private producers and through small scale embedded generation. And so the amount that state would be procuring has become a lot less. There is a claim in the IRP that the issue is with grid stability and that grid capacity does not allow for large-scale renewable energy to be introduced. And while that is a very complex topic and one that does need to be delved deeper into, it does seem as though I mean, this issue has been solved by other organizations. For example, Meridian Economics has looked into this. The Presidential Climate Commission has looked into this, and all modeling that has been done by other organizations has resulted in very large-scale renewable energy that is supported by small, flexible electricity from other sources. And so it is essentially possible to proceed with large-scale renewable energy, but it just seems like the IRP is using grid capacity as an excuse for sticking to the status quo and utilizing fossil fuels in electricity generation. The disappointing part here, and I think that this really links into youth development and the future of work, is that the lack of commitment to large-scale renewable energy really does impact local manufacturing and local systems development. The department itself, so the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, developed the Renewable Energy Master Plan, or the SARM, and that document showed that if there was big enough demand in South Africa, it would essentially enable local manufacturing, local systems, servicing of the renewable energy plants. And with that would come economic benefits and jobs that could result from the industrialization, especially if it was placed in locations where coal jobs are being lost. So this is a very big topic as to, like, is the IRP supporting large-scale renewable energy? And the answer is no. And what could happen to jobs if it were supported? So essentially what is being put forward is an expensive and unreliable fossil fuel system, and by the public procurement, and renewables are left for private companies to bring onto the grid. The other big energy source to talk about is coal. So while there is no new coal in the current horizon, the draft IRP does delay the decommissioning of older coal-fired plants. And what that brings with it is climate harms, health harms, an issue of security of supply, and other negative impacts. So everybody knows that the coal fleet that is currently in existence is it's very old, it's not being maintained, it has an availability factor of about 50%. So that means that the plants that are in existence are currently running only at 50% of the time. So when we rely on coal as a large part of our energy mix, the security of our supply is impacted, and that's what we're seeing with load shedding. the draft IRP also supports the building of clean coal generation facilities, and also in the future talks about carbon capture and storage. I think everyone on the call has heard about these technologies. They're very new and untested technologies. The only places where carbon capture and storage has been tested internationally has only been the CCUS of very small amounts of carbon. And the type of abatement that we would require to continue coal plants in South Africa is huge. It's on a very, very large scale, and that technology is not proven and it is not commercially available. So to rely on a future prospective, not yet available technology to enable current development and use of fossil fuels is not an adequate way of justifying the energy mix. Basically, the IRP is saying that, okay, so now we're moving on to gas. Gas, as I said, has increased from 3,000 megawatts to 7,000 megawatts. And basically what the IRP says is that the gas is needed to provide the flexibility that comes from the renewables element in the energy mix. And just to note that the type of gas that is being proposed by the IRP is not a flexible peaking solution. They're proposing very large base load or mid-merit power plants. Those are 1,000 megawatt, 2,000 megawatt, and one application that we're currently opposing and is an 8,000 megawatt gas to power ship off the coast of Richards Bay in Seleni Floating Power Station. So the type of justification that is used in the IRP is not actually what we're seeing in real life, as it is playing out through applications. Applications are all for baseload electricity. Essentially, any gas to power station that was built in South Africa would rely at the moment on imported gas. And as everyone knows, the gas price volatility is a huge issue. When there are wars in Eastern Europe, where there are pandemics, the security and supply of any fossil fuel is impacted by that, and that impacts the demand and supply, and that impacts the prices. Interestingly, or not, the price of imported gas and its volatility is not reflected through the IRP, and it is not incorporated into the modeling and the outcomes of each of the models that are utilized in coming up with IRP scenarios. The IRP does talk about the enormous potential for domestic gas production, either offshore or onshore in South Africa. And while there are large gas reserves in South Africa, many international agencies and scientists have identified that the current availability of gas internationally is sufficient to supply demand for the future. No new gas development in terms of production is required anywhere in the world, and any development that did occur would be hugely impacting climate ambition internationally. So yeah, gas is still a fossil fuel, whether it is called indigenous gas, whether it's called natural gas, it's still a fossil fuel. And when it's burnt in a power plant, it does emit half as much coal. I mean, it does emit half as much CO2 as a coal plant. But the problem with gas to power plants is the methane leakage that occurs throughout the life cycle of gas. So at production, at transportation, and in the production of gas to power, methane is leaked, and methane is a much more potent greenhouse gas than what carbon dioxide is. And so the climate impact of a gas to power plant, when you consider all of the different elements, is as bad, if not worse, than a coal-fired power plant. So when you're including gas in the energy mix, is that sustainable? The answer would be no. One of the challenges that we face is that renewable energy is not sufficient, and so gas is being forced in to balance the intermittency of renewable plants. And that is what we're seeing with the IRP, as gas being forced in. Right, so I think as a summary, the IRP that we're seeing is not a people's plan. It's not a plan that will address load shedding in the immediate term, and it's not a plan that looks to least cost solutions. It's choosing expensive and volatile energy sources, and through choosing those sources and not renewable energy, it isn't taking the opportunity to develop local manufacturing of renewable energy systems that would provide the jobs that we are losing through the transition away from coal. And at the same time, through the sources that are being selected in the energy mix, those sources are causing climate harm, health harm, and socioeconomic harm. I would like to continue, but if the moderator could please let me know how much time I have left, that would be greatly appreciated. I did just want to say one more thing. When I say that load shedding is not being addressed through the IRP explicitly says that load shedding is with us until 2028 through any of the scenarios that would be chosen that have been put forward. So it's really not a plan to address the issues that we are currently saddled with in South Africa. These are some key topics, and I think that this is really just for interest's sake, for people that are wanting to understand a little bit more about the impact of the IRP instead of what is actually inside it. The one big thing is climate and carbon emissions. So I've spoken a little bit about this, but essentially South Africa has a set nationally determined contribution, which is a commitment to keep emissions from all of our sectors to a certain amount of carbon equivalent emissions. So, and the IRP says that it is sticking within that limit, but the problem that we have here is that our NDC, or nationally determined contribution, is not good enough. We've been told by international community that the NDC is not good enough, and it needs to be more ambitious. So the idea is that in time NDCs will improve, that they will become more ambitious. But if we're sitting with an IRP that is relying on coal and gas and so-called clean coal technologies that won't come into effect, it makes the achievement of our NDC that more unlikely. We also need to understand that all sectors need to decarbonize, not just the electricity sector. The transport sector, industrial sector, all sectors need to decarbonize. And the one sector that is easier to decarbonize at the moment is the electricity sector. And that opportunity is not being reflected through the IRP. So if the electricity sector is utilizing the carbon emission sort of quantity that is allowed, what is going to happen to the transport sector? What's going to happen to industrialization? I've covered this. Another big issue that comes out of the IRP is the lack of adequate reflection on minimum emission standards. So what MESs are, it's essentially the law in South Africa that says how many toxic emissions can come out of each plant. This is with regard to air quality. What we're seeing at the moment is that Eskom, for example, cannot comply with these minimum emission standards and are asking for suspensions for their compliance. But what it really results in is that the people that are living in these polluted zones, their lives are continuing to be impacted, sicknesses continue and deaths continue where air quality is not improved. And the IRP does not discuss this. The IRP gleans over it and summarily says that minimum emission standards need to be balanced with electricity needs. And this is something that we say it's not possible to balance the loss of lives with the need for electricity. The two need, the one needs to inform the other. And then finally, one big topic is climate financing. So I think everybody would know that there is this Just Energy Transition Fund that is funded by other northern countries, especially, and organizations. And there's a huge amount of money that can aid the decarbonization of our country and the just energy transition. But funders have certain criteria that they need to have met before they can provide funding to South Africa. And one of their key objectives is that decarbonization is occurring. If those funders see that South Africa is committing to fossil fuels in the form of large-scale gas plants and slower decommissioning of coal, and even more coal projects after 2030, the likelihood of being granted adequate funding to enable our transition is unlikely. So this is a big issue and topic for discussion. And then I know I'm out of time, but just to chat about the procedural issues around the IRP, the commenting period has been incredibly short, even though we were granted an extension for submissions. Having to submit after 2 months of reviewing documents isn't sufficient for the people to do their own modeling and to justify submissions with actual modeling on our side. Also, very few consultations have been run by the DMRE in previous years. So in 2017, 2018, the DMRE conducted a roadshow around the whole country where they went into communities and they explained what the IRP was, what the impacts of the IRP were, and they allowed for questions and submissions to be given to them in person in those meeting rooms. And that has not been conducted at all this time round. It seems to be a very rushed process, and that is likely because we're in an election year and the DMRE has an imperative to get something out before elections start. But the bottom line is that the public participation process that is being conducted is in no means adequate. And I think I'm going to stop there because Thando, I think that's an indication that I'm out of time, and I'm going to open for any questions.
Thanks, Gabby. That was brilliant as well. Folks, do you have any questions for Gabby? At this time, I see no hands, Gabby. Awesome. Let's move on to our last speaker, and then we can get into a bit of a discussion thereafter.
Great.
Francina,
thank you, Thando. Greetings, everyone. My name is Francina Nkosi, and then I'm based at the rural area of Lephalale under the organization called Waterberg Women Advocacy Organization. It's a women-led organization which was formed in 2012 and we registered in 2016. And I always call myself a environmentalist, a human rights defender, activist, because what I do is more about the rights of women in all forms. What I'm gonna talk about is the IRP that communities know less about. And as communities who are based in rural areas, you can imagine how information is not adequate and it's not transparent and it's not flowing the same way as in urban areas. What did transpire it's on from March, early March, is that Climate Justice Coalition organized I will call it energy indabas, so that communities can be able to understand what is IRP and how it affects them prior to the march that will be happening tomorrow across South Africa. And what transpired in those IRP meetings is that there is the inequality in water supply, because corporates get more access to water and communities receive less. And there is energy poverty. and electricity is expensive. Most people, they rely on coal, those who are in Witbank, and some they rely on wood because wood is cheaper and wood is quicker, and some they buy, they fill their gas bottles, and some they use paraffin. And you can see that when a person buys electricity and then there's load shedding, few of the units will be lost. Sometimes it will be 2 or it will be 3 units lost. Then you can imagine when there's load shedding, then their appliances for communities are damaged. Who's responsible for replacing those appliances? No one. Then you can see that there is the inequality there. Communities can't afford to buy solar panels because they're making them more expensive. When they can make that cheaper, it will be easy for communities to be able to buy them and use them. There are those whom can be able to access those solar panels, but if that can be a policy that each and every household can be able to get solar panels, that one will be a good part. But now our government relies more on coal. I can talk on us in Lephalale when we are generating electricity. I don't have electricity where I stay, but I generate electricity. And you can imagine the health impacts, the air pollution that we are breathing there. It's something that it affects all of us. And who is responsible? It's Eskom, but Eskom can't take liability to that. For them is saying we generating electricity and it's a clean energy. It's not, because people are sick, and I can testify to that. I've lost a baby and an older person due to asthma, and the grown-up person was not born with asthma just because she moved to Lephalale, and that's how she got asthma. The baby just got 3 months old. He passed away due to asthma, and you can see that air pollution is affecting all of us, and it's affecting us dearly. And I think what is needed from the IRP is that there must be energy justice, there must be also promotion of food sovereignty so that we can support the local, because people are trying to do farming and backyard gardens, but they can't because there's no way they are supported. We need to support locally and make sure that the economy can be able to be sustainable if it starts locally. The other thing is also making sure that women's projects are being supported so that women are the ones who can be able to uplift the economy, but the government doesn't look at that one. And the other one also is making sure that communities can get access to clean water, and that way people can be able to know that they don't go to rivers to access water with the animals. And for me is the IRP doesn't talk to communities, it only looks at them, how they benefit. Imagine the load shedding for 4 years. How many appliances are going to be lost? How many lives are going to be lost? Because when there's load shedding, people are being killed, are being marked, and that is the danger, I think. And also these monitoring stations, they are not supported with batteries so that when there's load shedding, and they can be able to read. They know that when it's load shedding and information is lost, it's not for them. They pollute more so that no one can hold them accountable. I think if the government can be able to know that renewable energy is something that it's urgently needed. And the other thing is we need to do solidarity support for injustices, a global solidarity, because we need to support one another, whether it's African countries, whether it's South Africa, but we need to do a solidarity mobilization for injustices so that we can be able to get justice. And people's power is what we think is a solution. Come tomorrow, we are going to show DMRE that communities have power. We are going to make a noise in Limpopo. I hope everyone is ready to make a mark and also make the government to understand that we don't want this IRP of them. We want them to support renewable energy that is sufficient, cheap, and affordable for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Francina. That was another wonderful intervention. Colleagues, similar fashion, if there's anyone who'd like to ask anything to Francina before one final presentation, please go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, not seeing any hands. All right, we're gonna go into one final session. Oh wait, there's one hand. Sibusiso. Or was it a mistake? Sibusiso?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for this opportunity and also for the provided oversight, especially on the IRP. I have noted some things that even I feel like, yeah, they shouldn't be missing. But what I wanted to ask was, based on the previous presentation right now, I've heard that, yes, we are talking about solar power and how it's needed, but how do we ensure that we don't leave other people behind? Because it's not that affordable to, solar power is not as cheap as electric, because electric has already been there, but it's something we need to move from. But like with the current communities right now, it's quite hard to actually get a solar panel that will power up your stuff at home. Yeah.
Thanks, Sibusiso. Can we take Portia's hand? Okay, can I ask Portia that you just put your question in the chat box for us, and then it will be responded to there. And then Sibusiso, your question, there wasn't any specific presenter that you were pointing at, right? It was just a question. All right. Can Sibusiso, I think your question might have been directed to Francina. So Francina, would you mind responding just quickly?
Okay, thank you for the question. For me, as I've just highlighted, is that for now, the government, they're making sure that the solar panels are expensive. But if we can take it by making sure that in the IRP, it shows that every household can receive solar panels. And also making sure that our municipality plans, they support that communities can be able to access solar. I think that way it will make it cheaper and more accessible. And for people not to lose their jobs, is that we need to be all in one vision, so that we know that we are not saying we're killing other people's jobs, but we want clean jobs so that all of us can be able to live longer, not to have jobs that are focused on coal only. We have trade unions, we have NGOs, we have CBOs. All of us, if we are able to speak, we can be able to support that in renewable energy, we can all have jobs, making sure that we also protect those who are mining minerals for the batteries so that they can be also be protected and not exploited, to be able to know that if that community, not us to benefit, but those communities also need to benefit. We mustn't forget that those who are living next to those minerals, they don't benefit at all. But if we push, that those who live next to those minerals, they benefit. I think that way is a way of showing solidarity. Thank you.
Thanks, Francina. We'll take one more hand for now. There will be more time for discussion in a few minutes. MJ?
Thank you. I'd like to ask Gabrielle a question in terms of the delay of the old power station. Do you know how long they're delaying the decommissioning of those old power stations, specifically Hendrina and Camden? Because I know they were due for decommissioning in 2025.
MJ, thanks for the question. I think what I can do is I can email you after this, if that's okay, with the specific timelines. They provide a sort of a table that highlights different timelines for different plants, but it also isn't 100% clear what the plan is for decommissioning. MJ, won't you just pop your email? I think I have it, but won't you just pop your email in the chat and then I can send you the information that I have.
All right, thanks. MJ, and thanks, Gabby, for that. So Portia's question is directed to Ma'am Francina. So this will be the last question. She wanted to ask if it's possible for a monitoring station to use a generator for backup during load shedding.
Okay,
Francina?
thank you, Portia, for the question. To answer, Portia, is that the government, as we speak, they don't use the generator. But with the meeting that we attended of the ITT, we pushed that they should put batteries so that when it's load shedding, no information is lost. And in that way, we can be able to have more information on how they are polluting. I hope sooner, because they said they're waiting for April for the funds, and they will put batteries and solars for them. I hope communities, for those who are not understanding the importance of that, to go and steal those solar panels from there, because we have those people who doesn't understand the importance of solar panels. They think if they steal and sell to others, it's a way of life. We need also to teach other communities to understand the importance of not vandalizing community properties. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Francina, and thank you so much, colleagues, also for those questions. We want to move into a section now where we kind of look forward and see what are the opportunities that are present in modern day South Africa, considering where we're wanting to go. We've got a chance to understand a bit of the context, the specifics around what the IRP is saying, what the impacts are based on the previous IRP. So now we're going to hand over again back to Bonani just to touch on what is it that we could look forward to and the opportunities that are ahead. Bonani?
Yes, thank you, man. Is my screen, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Visible. Okay, good. You know?
Yeah.
Regardless whether the IRP 2023, it responds to our concerns, like concerns coming from social, economic, and also environmental issues. The world is still moving forward with climate action, climate change action. And also the world is consistently looking for opportunities within its economic opportunities, that is, within its mitigation and adoption strategies. So whether we like it or not, in South Africa, through our policy documents, whether we halt the development and the diffusion of renewables within our economy. The world indeed is looking forward, searching these opportunities, whilst us were still playing the game as of who wins, who doesn't win. The trend out there in the world, it's very clear that the climate change action and also mitigation and also adaptation strategies, they really, really have opportunities for people. So with that, it's very sad to see our policy documents that they still playing the dilly-dally between renewables and also fossil fuels, which fossil fuels basically, without a doubt, it's an industry that is really, really dying because it's too expensive. Not only it's too expensive, we can't afford electricity coming from it. But it's very sad to see that we as South Africans, we're still playing the games. You know, as we are still stuck in these conversations as of like conversations that are blocking the diffusion of the renewables. As I said, the world is moving on. A good example is this. In 2023, as far as I could remember, yes, it was 2023, the first quarter, TIPS, they released the stats, which was showing that in South Africa, there were approximately 1.1 billion rand worth of lithium-ion batteries, including the cells that were imported into the country. And yet, and the country, unfortunately, it missed that opportunity. When I say it missed that opportunity, it means, instead of creating an ecosystem that is responding to what is happening within the market that is governed by the climate change action, we're blocking these opportunities. And when these opportunities are coming, then the minority of people within our country, they get the chance of taking the full advantage because we were not prepared by the government on how we're supposed to respond to these opportunities. Let me share something very quick before I start my presentation. Let me share something. I finished my PhD approximately 8 years ago. And my PhD basically was based on lithium-ion batteries. We're developing lithium-ion batteries. And the idea was, let's localize our lithium-ion batteries so that when the opportunity later on in future arises in South Africa, then it can find us be able to respond effectively as a country in terms of responding, having our own intellectual property and also having our own capacity within the country. Because of we're so committed to this fossil fuel industry that is dying, that technology was not fully developed up to its full capacity. And also, even people who were being developed throughout that process, they were not fully developed to a point whereby they will start their own businesses. And when the opportunity came last year, and we missed it, that opportunity came whilst we have PhD holders within the country, came that opportunity and it passed us. And it's a sad thing. It's really, really a sad thing. In fact, one part of my story, as I was developing these lithium-ion batteries, because of the country, again, was playing this game of blocking renewables and blocking lithium-ion batteries to be fully diffused within our economy. Literally, after finishing my PhD, I was without a job for 2 years. Like someone who finished a PhD, who has been developing lithium-ion battery, which is a hot potato in the market. Yet that person was without a job. And the reason for that, of course, is because of we are so committed at protecting, that is us as the country, we're so committed at protecting these legacy industries, which we know these legacy industries, unfortunately, as much as we love them, their end time is near, they are dying. So I was stuck for 2 years with the PhD, not working, simply because of the market that was supposed to be opened by the government was never fully open. And when that market was open 3-4 years later on, after my unemployment with PhD, it found again the country not having the capacity to take the full advantage. And we lost approximately $7 billion. And that $7 billion, none of the South Africans, like ordinary South Africans, they were able to take advantage of. And that's where this conversation basically it goes and boils to say that, yes, we understand the IRP, it looks at the so-called least cost technology. But however, the world is moving forward, whether we like it or not. And if we're not catching up, we'll consistently seeing the likes of Bonani with PhDs being unemployed with adequate skill. Not only that, we will miss opportunities that these renewables and also battery technologies they're coming with. And it's such a sad story. So as I'm starting my presentation, I'm just going to go through the future of work. Or rather, look at the trends of the future of work. When we look at the trends of the future of work, of course, we know that they are greatly governed by the green transition. And the green transition is we're transiting from fossil fuels all the way to less emitting technologies or green technologies. But in the process of that, the civil societies and other organizations, of course, they try by all means to protect the interest of the stakeholders, that as we're transiting, let's make sure that there is no one who's left behind. When we say no one is left behind, we mean either someone is already employed or either someone is not employed. Let's make sure that we're able to quantify the skills that are needed and be able to reskill and upskill people so that they can be ready for opportunities as this revolution of green transition is coming along. So I'm just going to be pointing out three things that are fundamentally important for us who are employed and who are looking forward to transit from fossil fuels to renewables, or rather green transition, or rather those who are actually within the space itself of like the green space itself. 3 points, and afterwards my presentation is closed. Look. When one look at the global landscape of the green technology which involves renewables, of course, solar PV, also wind, including the components that are making these technologies, approximately 90%, according to international labor organizations, 90% is of the skill and the intellectual capacity is concentrated within the East Asian countries. 90%. Concentrated in those East Asian countries. That's very scary. But however, according to ILO again, International Labour Organization, they're saying that this is what they realized throughout the series of surveys that they conducted for the past 5 years, is that one thing is for sure, the trend is countries that are high emitting, such as South Africa, countries that are high emitting, they're trying by all means that the intellectual property is transferred into the country so that that intellectual property can be utilized adequately within these high emitting countries, which is countries like South Africa. What does that mean? That actually means that countries that are high emitting like ours, they're starting to having conversations to say to the intellectual property owners to say, bring your IP to South Africa so that we can start the means of production within our country so that we can secure also means of production and also a labor within the country. So one point that we should know is that according to ILO, for the following 5 years, there's this concentration on the means of production of solar PVs and also other forms of renewable energy. But these means of productions, countries that don't have this intellectual property, they try by all means that this intellectual property has to be active within their countries so that they can have access to the means of property and create more jobs for people. And the time period is specifically 2023 to 2027. So there's going to be a boom across the world with regards to, or at least we're expecting a boom across the world with regards to localizing and manufacturing components that are enabling technologies into renewables. The second part is these manufacturing systems, of course, they're greatly influenced by the adoption of technology. Now the question is, which technologies, according to the trends that we have seen for the past 2-3 years, which technology trends that are out there that we show that if one position themselves according to acquiring the skill according to these technologies, then the person stands a chance for the following 5 years at least to have a safe job and lifelong careers. When I looked at the data again, we realized that indeed the trend is the digital platforms and apps, they always are far ahead. But however, when you go to power storage and generation, you can see that they also playing a major significant role, because approximately 50% of the companies that were involved in this survey, they said it that for the following 5 years, they're going to be focusing on power storage and generation, and also looking at climate change mitigation technologies, including environmental management technologies. What does that mean for us in South Africa? It means if you are a student, or if you are a person who want to transit from one employment to another, it's very, very good at this point in time, especially for the following 5 years, to look at these sectors: power storage and generation, and also climate change mitigation technologies, and also environmental management technology. Because for the following 5 years, these are going to be actually dictating how the world moves and how the labor market responds to the unemployment. So with that said, the impact that has been modeled by ILO, again, international labor laws, what they found, I'm just going to be concentrating only on these 3 technologies that I just mentioned. What they found was the climate change mitigation technologies and also environmental management technologies. Of course, when they're coming in, they're going to be displacing a certain part of jobs within these 300 countries, not rather 300 countries, but within these countries that they were looking at for the past 2 years. So, which that means that the environmental management technologies and also climate mitigation technologies, including the power storage and generation, when you look at them, indeed, they're going to come and displace some technologies. But however, the ratio with regards to the jobs being displaced by them and the jobs, sorry. This is,
no, you may proceed. You just dropped off for a moment.
I can't hear you, sorry.
I was saying you dropped off for a moment, but you're back now, so you can proceed.
Oh, sorry about that. Which part did you hear? I'm about to summarize now.
Yeah, I think when you started on this particular slide, we missed you. So you can just start the slide again.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I was saying, now the technology adoption, of course, it's greatly determined by, or rather the manufacturing is greatly determined by the technology adoption. Now that technology adoption, when ILO was looking at it, they look at it as of within the following 5 years, there will be a job displaced, or rather jobs being displaced, and also there will be jobs being created. When I focus only on environmental management technologies, climate change mitigation technologies, and also power storage and generation, what we can see here is indeed there will be jobs that are going to be displaced. But however, comparing the jobs that are modeled to be displaced compared to the jobs that are going to be created, the ratio is too much. As one can see on climate change, we're looking at approximately 10% of the jobs that are going to be displaced within the labor market. But however, the jobs that are going to be created by, or rather we're looking at 5%, but the jobs that are going to be created, they are far more compared to the jobs that are going to be displaced. What does that mean? This actually means that if one wants to secure a meaningful career within the space of climate, within the space of environmental management, and also power storage and generation, it is very, very critical for the following 5 years. Try by all means to invest yourself into these technologies or into these sectors, so that you can make sure that after these 5 years, when the market now is fully saturated, at least you have made some strides in terms of securing yourself for a better future. So yeah, I think my presentation is going to be stopped here. if anyone has a question, I'm here.
Bonani, thank you so much for these insights. I think they're very, very useful and speak quite directly to the audience. Folks, we've gotten a chance today to hear exactly where we are as a country in terms of our energy circumstance, what we're planning to do about it, at least as articulated in the IRP, what we might need to consider in terms of its impacts for those who might not be able to build or to be quite as resilient as we need them to be. And so we then closed off with some opportunities for how we could strengthen some of that resilience, particularly looking at sectors that we could move into as a people and as a country. We're now at that part of the session where we'd like to have just some open dialogues, some reflections from those who wish to say anything related to the conversation, of course. And so I would like to ask for some hands, please. It could be a reflection, it could be a comment, it could be a question. The floor is quite honestly open at this point. Sibusiso?
Oh, hi. Hi, guys, again. Thank you so much. I just have a few questions and a comment and a question for everybody at the end, maybe 2 questions. For the previous speaker, I think what I understood is that there was, we are blocking opportunities, especially by protecting these legacy industries. What I would like to find out is what do these, like, what exactly does that look like? Maybe in context, in an example, like what are these legacy industries are we protecting? And also, is that like one of the biggest barriers for us as a country? And then a question that I'd like to pose to everybody, maybe this is a bit outside, is that I think the previous speaker also mentioned that we are at a point where we are actually adopting technology in a fast track. So I wanted, like, I know that adoption of technology also means AI. So how can we integrate that into policy? And if anyone knows of any AI policy that currently exists, like, what does that look like? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sibusiso. Before anyone responds, I just wanted to find out if there aren't any other questions. Okay, let's then, I'm not sure if that last question was directed specifically at Bonani, but I would like to also invite the other panelists to respond if they so wish. But over to you first, Bonani.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Luzugu. Yeah, the legacy technology, I mean, rather, the legacy technologies or industries, it's coal, gas, and liquid fuels. A few weeks, or rather a few months back, I was having a conversation with someone from Satri. I'm not going to mention their name. And I was having a conversation in terms of the renewables, how important they are for the country at the moment, regardless whether we do understand the entirety of science or not. And the sense that I got from the person was, regardless of what's happening, they will always protect the legacy, industries, which is particular coal. And I understand where she was coming from. Where she was coming from, basically, she was coming from the point that there's a lot of jobs that are at stake if we decommission some of our power plants, and that's totally understandable. But however, like I said in my presentation, it's very critical at this point in time as South Africans that we look at things not only at the local level, but we also look at the global trends as of what's happening globally, and where are the trends taking us at a global level. And it's very clear so far, because of the consistent plummeting of renewable prices and also energy storage, it's very clear that unfortunately, these legacy technologies or industries, coal, gas, and liquid fuels, they can't compete at a price. And because of they can't compete at the price, when I say price, I mean the levelized cost of energy, they can't compete. And because of they can't compete, that means that the industry players, they're looking beyond coal, they're looking beyond gas, and they're looking beyond fuel cells. In short, it's very critical for us as a country to make sure that we respond to these opportunities, regardless whether we do understand the science or not, but look at the trends that are happening globally so that we can respond effectively. And then we don't find ourselves missing the opportunities once again, just like we did last year on battery.
Thanks so much, Bonani. Can I extend then the invite to Gabby and Francina? Would you guys like to make any contributions?
For me, I'll just add, he answered it well, but for me, I just want to just give an example. In Lephalale, we have Exxaro coal mine, which supports Matimba and Medupi. And we did have new mines that wanted to support Medupi and Exxaro, but they couldn't. It's a confirmed deal, and no other mine can be able to support. That's where I'm just rubber stamping to say they are protecting, making sure the benefit that they are benefiting from, no one can remove it. And this can be won if we are united to demand our rights to clean energy. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Francina. Pinky?
Hello, okay. Good day, everyone. My name is Pinky Mavuswane. I'm from an organization in Sebokeng. What we do is we empower communities. So the information shared in this session is very vital. It's very important. So I feel the need for this information can be brought to communities so that the people can actually have information about what exactly is renewable energy and what it is that we need so that we can transition well from where we are to where we want to go. So I don't know who to talk to be able to bring these workshops to the communities. I actually work with bringing workshops to communities where people can actually access information that is very hard to access. So this information that has been discussed here is very important, and I feel that there's a need for it to be brought to communities. So I don't know how to go about. Yeah, I hope I'm understood.
Thanks, Pinky. You are understood. At the end, at the closing session, we might provide some options for you. If it's okay, we'll just move over to Geletzo's, and then from there, just closing remarks from the speakers. Geletzo.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Geletzo. I work in the ESG assurance sector in one of the big fours. And I just wanted to take this whole conversation from the finance point of view. Yes, we've put in so many inputs into this matter, and they're very validated, and I agree with like most of them. But I just wanted to share my view on, you know, the role of financial institutions in this whole topic. I think we all know the role of banks when it comes to businesses across different sectors, you know, and how they are financing these businesses, whether they are high emitting or low emitting. And I think I've seen a trend right now where banks are now like managing their negative impacts in respect of their financed emissions by setting, stipulated targets to reduce their lending to clients in high emitting sectors, and that would be your coal, oil, and gas sectors, right? So what does this mean, and how does it affect us? I believe that businesses that are financed will be highly considerate of the environment, right? And within the lending agreements, your environmental, social, and governance audits will be mandatory, and therefore, reducing, meaning that they will be required to disclose, their energy consumptions and their activities when it comes to engaging with communities and the environment directly. And also, how does that affect us as, graduates and young people that are looking for employment, So I believe that more and more people will then be participating in green jobs in that manner, since more and more businesses or companies that are, more green than the high emitting ones. And this would mean that we as young people will be actively participating in the economy while, acting in a green and environmentally friendly manner through our jobs. And obviously, if we are in green jobs, then we'll have better understanding of the importance of, just reducing our emissions from our daily activities. So I just believe that as much as we talk about this, but the route in which banks are now moving, of which is like more of sustainable finance, is really leading us to where we want to be. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much, Galeto. I appreciate that input. All right, colleagues, may I start with Gabby and then Francina and then close with Bonani, just for final remarks.
Thanks very much, Tando. I have a few things to say. So firstly, thank you to MJ for her questions regarding Camden and Hendrina decommissioning. I crowdsourced the information from my colleagues, from my team that works on the decommissioning of projects. And I have some information here. So firstly, I want to say that the IRP itself doesn't include the time frame for different plants being decommissioned. They refer to Eskom's 2035 strategy, which itself is quite low on details. But my colleagues who work on this say that Camden, the first unit for Camden is set to be decommissioned in 2024, and the first unit for Hendrina is set to be decommissioned in 2025. And MJ, if you'd like documents, my colleagues will send those to me. So that was just on that. And then I think that while thinking about decommissioning, I also wanted to feed into what Bonani was sharing earlier about skills and the future of work in South Africa. And the decommissioning is such a big part to play here, because with each decommissioning project, Eskom has a plan for repurposing and repowering their plants. So what that means is starting new projects and new industries in those locations that would bring job creation to the locations where job loss is occurring as a result of decommissioning of the coal plants. So I wanted to say as advice, and I think that's a little bit of repetition from what Bonani said, but as advice to participants on the call wanting to prepare themselves for the future of work, to follow the information that Eskom puts out regarding their just energy transition strategy. They have quite a detailed website and many pages on the JET, but when they host webinars detailing the projects that they are pursuing in their repurposing and repowering of those decommissioned stations. For example, the Komati repowering and repurposing project started a while ago, and there's some results from those. And then new projects are proposed all the time for the other decommissioned plants. I wanted to, as an example, show one slide here, and I don't want to take too long, sorry. But for example, here, Eskom shared this. No, I'm on the wrong. I'm on the right screen. Eskom shared this slide in one of their recent presentations, and it's basically the 50 projects that they have proposed for repurposing of plants, and then 70 projects that they have proposed for repowering. So for those wanting to prepare themselves and skill themselves in the appropriate technologies and appropriate areas of industrialization, I really think Eskom gives good pointers, and then more digging is required to do the rest. So I'm going to leave that on the screen for a second longer while I respond to Pinky's request. Pinky, we're talking about how to get information like what we said today in this meeting out to the communities, and I understand that you do that sort of work already. So I think there's quite a few organizations that will do community workshops and bring the information that is needed for communities to make submissions, for communities to have a voice in parliamentary processes and government decisions. For example, the Centre for Environmental Rights has an activist and support training team. So if you'd like to get in touch with me, I'm very happy to pass on and connect you with our team, because that is the center of what ASNT does at CER. And then I also wanted to say, Kaletso, I think that empowering yourself with the knowledge of ESG and financing arrangements around ESG is so important at this point in time, because it really is going to inform you of the direction of projects in South Africa. I think ESG is a really tricky space at the moment, especially internationally, because greenwashing is such a huge problem. I'm sure that you all know that as well. A lot of projects that are inherently bad for the environment and bad for social equity and so forth, they are approved as ESG projects. For example, in Europe, a gas power plant would be approved as an ESG project. And as I've mentioned earlier, the climate harms, the social harms, economic harms, and climate harms associated with gas, you would think that that wouldn't be a decision made. So, you know, to wrap that up, ESG is so tricky, and large financial institutions, they're really looking after their shareholders at the end of the day. So you have to take sort of policies from banks and financial institutions with a pinch of salt and really interrogate them for yourself, and whether they are really complying with like to the core what ESG is. But bottom line, I think that if you guys are learning about ESG now, that's such a good route to go. And then there was another question on the chat. And the question is, if you don't mind me reading it, how can stakeholders collaborate to ensure that the transition outlined in the IRP 2023 promotes inclusive growth, safeguards job stability, and fosters youth development in South Africa's evolving energy landscape? And this is a question that we grapple with all the time, because there are formal routes that one can go to make submissions to the department, to make sure that the imperatives and the values that you want to see reflected through the IRP are there. For example, inclusive growth, job stability, and youth development. The official route to go is just to make a submission to the department. The current deadline, as a few of us have referred to, is Saturday, this coming Saturday. But what we understand is that the department is doing some remodeling on the IRP, and there may be future opportunities for submitting comments on that future IRP. And that's really like the official route to go. There are also opportunities in advocacy. So writing your thoughts and communicating those to as many people as possible, and really creating a movement that asks the government to do what you are asking of them. So I know that's a bit vague, but yeah, that's what I wanted to say for now. And Tondo, I think you maybe want to take questions from other people. I think I covered everything. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, I think. Thanks, Gabby. There's a question there. Just if you could just add your contacts again in the group. Francina.
Thank you, Tando. What I just want to highlight is that colonialism was about wealth for them, and that's why the capitalism has no vision of how to move away from oil, gas, and coal. We need to educate, provide practical solution for change, because that is urgently needed. When we look at activism, activism is telling the story of what is actually happening in real life, and we need to continue to do that so that we can document whatever issues are happening in our communities, so that we can be able to have proof of how the violation have happened, how the pollution, and how this IRP is affecting us in communities. As communities, we are only valuable to put an X and put them in power. But when they have to do what they promise communities, that is difficult. And then they will be telling us as communities that we are nagging, we are always toying, we are always doing that, forgetting that they promised people lies from their manifestos. And that we need to look at, because this is how they use communities, because they look at how communities' needs are, and then they promise based on that, and they fail to implement that. And for me, I think it's urgent for us as communities to make sure that women take a lead to protect the world for the future generation. And also making sure that
Hi, Francine, you've muted. Francina? Okay.
Oh, sorry. And also making sure that, sorry for the background noise, and also making sure that we promote social justice so that we can be able to have the clean, just, and renewable energy for all. And that is what we need to fight for, everyone. This is not about me, it's not about you or the other one. It's about all of us, because we need to know that these heat waves, as they are happening now, is a sign of saying the pollution is more and we need to reduce. And if we are not reducing and we exceed, we are going to experience more heat waves that's gonna cause the burning of this earth. And in that way, we need to protect these priority areas that need to be protected. The forests, the oceans, those wetlands, because we need them to protect us, and we need them to make sure that the future generation is being protected, because they need this world. It's not the end about us. They still to continue to live on which world, because now it's becoming dirtier and dirtier. We need to make sure that we are promoting and protecting. When about to end is that it's not about me, it's not about you, but it's all about us. Let's take a stand and make sure that we fight and protect what we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francina. And then, Bonani, you're the last speaker for now. Over to you.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. Am I audible?
Yes.
Oh, yes. A few months back, we were having a COSATU workshop, and I had the privilege of having a conversation with one of the guys who's working at in Mpumalanga, ESCO in particular. And one of the units that he's working at was being closed for obvious reasons. And when I was having that conversation with him, I was basically asking, how are you feeling, man? Because clearly this is threatening your job or the job security. And he told me that, look, man, I can't sleep at night. Huh? And the reason why I can't sleep at night, this is the only place I know to work within the coal industry, unfortunately. And I don't even know what to do. I don't know what I will do if I lose this job. And by the look of things, clearly I'm going to lose it. That was very, very insightful to me and very personal, because I could relate to what he was saying. And basically that's why we as WWF, we're developing the IEP. We're developing the IEP, which is the Integrated Energy Plan, of course. We're developing this IEP so that we can quantify basically opportunities that are within demand side and also within the energy, or rather within the supply side. And not only quantify those scientifically, quantify them, be able to present to people who are actually at risk of losing their jobs. And when we're presenting these numbers to them, we present them in such a way that people, they can see opportunities for themselves within the energy space as the country we're transiting. So the IEP that we're developing, it's extremely important, and we're very excited about it. And the idea is to basically providing insights from across the different sectors within the energy space, but also across different communities, so that people, they can actually identify themselves and they can actually see how they are affected by this transition. Not only that, but be able to see quantifiable and practical opportunities for themselves, and also be able to start businesses that are responding to this transition. With that said, we do appreciate Gabrielle for the insights that you have given us on the IRP. It's very, very great. But however, we're still saying that in solidarity, of course, that the IEP is not enough, and because of it's not enough in terms of how it's responding to the economic economic problems that we're facing as the country, and it needs to be informed by a broad a policy document such as IEP, so that people, they can actually feel very participating and feel as part of this transition that is happening within the country. With all that, I just want to say thank you to the participants, and also thank you to the audience to come and listen to us. Thank you, guys.
Colleagues, thank you so much. To the speakers, thank you to you as the audience for joining us. This has been a wonderful session, and thank you for remaining for as long as you have. We will continue to have more of these webinars as time goes, so we encourage you guys to get in touch with us. All of the email contacts that have been sent on the chat, we encourage dialogue there as well. We will be sending out the presentations. The colleagues will forward that. Outside of that, let me thank you as well, just for being a wonderful audience. But for now, let's end it there, and we shall convene again at our next sitting, which we will communicate in due course. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your evenings, and all the best for the week as well. Thank you.